Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to do a flowing practice on the mat, and the only props that we're going to use are two small weights. So I have two 2.5 pound plates, but if you have like 1 or 2 or 3 pound weights, little hand weights, that's also going to work very well. So let's just get started in a table position. On the hands and the knees, and let's start to just sway a little bit of weight from side to side so we can just kind of gently warm up the wrists and just feeling all 4 limbs making contact with the floor. Elbows can be straight. They can also bend a little bit right now, like if that gives you a little bit better movement. So let's start to just sway the weight into all the directions. It could be a circular movement. It can be kind of like a figure 8 movement. Lean the weight back into your hips. Give a little stretch to the top of the feet. Lean the weight forwards. Bend the arms. Straighten the arms. Turn the arms in. Turn the arms out. Really just kind of simple basic movements to just get the whole body kind of focused. And then from the table position, just set yourself up in whatever feels like neutral for you. And let's start to take the right arm out to the side. We're going to actually bend the elbow though. So I want my forearm to be pretty much parallel with the floor, elbow at about 90 degrees. I'm going to start to lift that arm up as high as I can, but without moving the rest of my body. So my chest, my eyes are looking down. My bottom arm is really pushing into the floor, so I'm not collapsing there. And my right arm is just trying to stay parallel with the floor while lifting up. Let's hold for a couple more counts. So really starting to wake up those nice muscles in the back of the shoulder and the upper back. Let's place the right hand back down onto the floor. Reset the position if you need to. Take the left arm out to the side, elbow bent, forearm parallel with the floor. You can maybe look over and just kind of see what's happening there. Try not to shrug the shoulders in this one. Notice if you could feel where that left shoulder blade is on your upper back. Noticing all the little muscles around the back of the shoulder blade that might start to kick in. Let's hold for a couple more seconds here. Continue really pushing from the bottom arm and then taking that left hand back down to the floor. This time, take your right hand straight back behind you. Internally rotate the arm and try to press the palm up to the ceiling as high as you can. Notice what the rest of your body is doing. Can you keep it relatively neutral? Really straighten that right elbow. Let's hold for a couple more seconds. Starting to feel a little bit of activation in different parts of the upper body. Place that right hand back down to the floor. Let's do the left arm. So we're just warming up with some really simple isometric holds, which I really like because they get a lot of activity around the muscles, but they're also just like really simple. Squeezing the tricep muscles, squeeze the elbow nice and straight, lift the arm up, pull the arm in. Place the hand down on the floor, last one. Reach your right arm forwards like it's going straight up overhead. Notice what the rest of the body wants to do. Can you keep it pretty neutral? Can you turn your thumb up to the ceiling while staying supported with the bottom shoulder so we're not collapsing into that bottom arm? Right hand back down on the floor, left arm straight overhead. So trying to warm up the shoulders in all the different positions. And just kind of checking out our mobility. This might improve, this might increase over the duration of the class. We're going to check back in with these movements. Place the hand on the floor. Let's tuck the feet under and then begin to hover the knees and take it back into a very slow bent leg downward dog pose. So not worrying too much about your exact alignment, but just kind of pushing overhead. Maybe sway a little bit from side to side. If that feels good, you can get some movement through the waist and through your ribs. And then let's slowly bring the knees back down to the floor, basically as slowly as you can. As you do that, just notice where your core and your head is in space. Try to bring yourself to somewhat of a neutral position. And we do this 2 more times. Adjust your feet if necessary. Hover the knees 1 inch off the floor. And then slow and smooth. Press the hips up into the air. So feeling quite a lot of engagement probably through the different parts of the upper body. Maybe we start to feel the leg muscles kicking in a little bit. Bring the knees back down to the floor at the exact same time, but really slowly. Last one, knees up. Arms pretty straight, taking the hips back and up into the air. And then slowly bring the knees back down to the floor. From here, take your hands quite close to your knees, come onto your fists, and with the fists, just kind of walk around on your mat a little bit. So hands can be really close to you to kind of take the pressure off, take the edge off a little bit. If you're comfortable putting more weight in your fists, you can walk them further away from you. This is going to be really individual for everyone. And then let's go on to the outer edges of the hands. Just kind of walking around there, flip them over, go onto the inner edges of your hands. It's nice to do all these different hand positions, especially after we've had the hands on the floor for a little while. Let's go onto the tops of the hands, just kind of warming up all the positions. And then take another 10 seconds or so and just put any part of your hand on the floor that you feel needs a little bit of stretch, a little bit of mobility, maybe even just a little bit of movement. It doesn't have to be anything too particular. From here, let's reach the arms forwards, tuck your feet under, let's come into a downward dog position. Take the hips up into the air and begin to walk your hands back towards your feet. Feet can be separated as much as you need. Letting the weight of the head just kind of drop down into a forward fold. And then let's begin to walk the arms back out to the downward dog position. Holding here for a couple breaths. Notice if you could breathe with your nose. And then again, walk your hands back in to your feet. So you're kind of actively pushing the floor away from you. Pause for just a second, the forward fold, maybe give a little stretch to the back of the legs, slowly walking the hands back out. So just making our warm up a little bit more dynamic. Taking a breath in the downward dog position. Notice if you can expand the back of the ribs, the back of the waist with your breath. Last one, walk the hands all the way in to the feet. This time we're going to stay there, pause for a second, and let's begin to slowly roll up through the spine. So the head could be the last part of your body to roll up. Nice and slow and smooth. Until you are completely stacked back up at the top. And from here, let's just take a few steps forward so we get to the front of our mat. We're gonna bend over and pick up the small weights. I'm gonna face you for this one. You're gonna have the feet a little bit separated, bend the knees a little bit, and begin to hinge forwards at the hips. Not so that you're parallel with the floor, a little bit upwards, maybe like 45 degrees. And then we're going to take the right arm out to the side in that same position that we did right away. So forearm parallel with the floor, elbow bent 90 degrees, holding there for a couple seconds. And then slowly let that arm go down. And then we're gonna take the left arm up. Forearm parallel with the floor, elbow bent 90 degrees, spine nice and neutral, lower back down. Let's do both at the same time. Both little weights up, hold. Try not to shrug. Try to feel those muscles around the shoulder blades. Taking a couple gentle breaths with the nose if you can. Slowly release the arms down, stand up for a second. Take a breath here, just giving your back muscles a little bit of a breather. Let's hinge. Take the right arm straight back behind you into extension. So internally rotate the arm, squeeze your triceps, squeeze all the muscles around your elbow. Slowly lower, same thing on the left side. Arm internally rotated. Maintaining awareness of the rest of the body. Really lifting the hand up. Slowly lower. Both arms, holding for a couple of seconds. This is so simple, but it feels very difficult. You might have a little bit of a shake to you. Slowly release, stand for a second. Just take a breath, maybe with your nose if you can. Slowly hinge forwards. Last one, thumbs up to the ceiling, right arm up overhead. Hold. If you can't get your arm actually over your head, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Just lift it up as high as you can. Keep your arm nice and straight. Slowly right arm down, slowly left arm up, and hold. So these weights are really light, but when we're doing these longer holds, these pauses, they start to feel real heavy. Slowly lower both arms up. If you feel a little bit of activation in your lower back, it's probably normal. We've been bent over for quite a little while. Slowly release. Standing, take a moment here. Let the weights just kind of like drop your shoulders a little bit away from your ears. And then from here, let's begin to reach the arms out in front of you and start to take those weights. Take your arms right up overhead. And then let's begin to hinge forward. So nice and slow and smooth. So you got weight in your hands, a little bit more resistance than usual. Place the weights on the floor, come into a forward fold, relax the head down. Place the hands on the floor, step back into plank, keep your weights close by. Let's take the feet a little bit wider than usual, maybe the width of your mat. Take the weight in your right hand, and then we're gonna start to take the elbow out to the side, bend 90 degrees, hold. Not gonna stay for too long because this is difficult, but giving it a try. Place the weight down onto the floor. Take the weight into your left hand. Stabilize your plank. Try not to lift your hips too high. I'm probably lifting my hips a little bit too high. Take the left arm out to the side, hold. Elbow bent. Notice if one side is harder than the other. Weight down on the floor. Let's press it back to a downward dog position. Take the hips up into the air. Your knees can be bent or straight, and just giving a nice stretch to the sides of the waist. If you want to let your hips sway side to side, sometimes this is a good idea. It's got a little bit of movement through the pelvis, the pelvic floor, the inner legs, just everything. Keep your feet where they are. One by one, walk the hands into the feet. Just take a moment in a forward bend. If the forward bend's not feeling great, you could bend your knees and come down to a squat. Whatever works better for you. And then back up into the forward bend. Let's walk the hands all the way back forwards into the plank. We're going to pick up the weight with the right hand, feet wide, and then take that weight straight back behind you, shoulder into extension. Noticing how this affects the entire body, your entire core. Try to stay contained through that bottom shoulder so we're not letting things drop down to the floor or sink. Place the weight back down, pick up your left weight. Take it back behind you, holding. So while we're focusing on that left shoulder, we also want to stay aware of what's happening through the rest of the body. Place the weight down. Take it into a downward dog pose. Pause for a second. Let the hips sway side to side. Let your body move. Walk your hands back to your feet. Either a forward bend or come down into a squat. Notice if you could take a couple breaths with the nose. If you can't breathe through your nose, that's okay. But noticing if you could maybe work your way into it. Maybe you have to take a couple breaths with your mouth, but then maybe at some point you could continue breathing with your nose. Hips nice and high. We've got one more time. We're going to walk it all the way forward. Wide foot plank. We're going to pick up the right weight, and then let's start to take the arm overhead. Hold. It might not actually go over your head, but that's okay. It's just moving away from the floor. Trying not to lift the hips too much. That will be the challenge. Place the weight back down. Pick up your left weight. Lift it overhead as much or as little as you can. Notice how your entire body has to work. So intense, such a simple move. Place the weight down onto the floor. Come on down to your knees. Lean back into a child's pose and just pause for a second. Maybe sway a little if you like. Again, notice if you could get the breath going through the nose. Maybe you can breathe a little bit into the back of the ribs. Just feeling like all of that engagement that just happened through the entire body. Pretty amazing. From the child's pose, let's stretch the arms forwards. And then we're gonna come into a plank, just briefly. From plank, you might choose to put your knees on the floor. And then we're gonna lower our bodies right down to the ground. You could also do this with your knees up. Just slow and smooth, right down to the floor. We're gonna take the weights in both hands. Take your arms out to the side so the elbows are bent at 90 degrees. I'm sure you know what we're doing. You can choose to keep your head down, or you can lift your head up a little bit, whatever works better for you. But let's lift both arms up and hold. This one I find feels really good. It's challenging, but it's not too challenging. And it just gets a little bit of action in all those nice upper back muscles. Try not to shrug. Can you keep your forearms parallel with the floor? All right, take them down. Take a second. Put your head down if you like. Take a breath into the back of the ribs. This time we're going to take the weights down beside the hips. Turn the palms up to the ceiling. So again, the arms are internally rotated. I'm going to keep my head and my chest up a little bit. You can decide if that's good for you. Lift the arms straight up and hold. Squeeze the triceps. Squeeze the muscles around the elbows. Squeeze the arms up, but also pull them inwards. So you really feel the lats. You feel all those nice muscles in the middle, the upper back. Lower it down. Let's take the weights out to the sides and just leave them there. Take the hands, palms down beside the chest. Use your knees. Push your body up. Let's go back into a downward dog position. It's kind of getting into that overhead range. Pausing for a second. I love this pose just to get a little bit of a stretch through my whole body. From downward dog, you can look forwards and begin to walk your feet up towards your hands. You can keep them separated if that works better for you. Let the weight of the upper body drop down, and then let's slowly begin to roll up through the spine. Stacking your body, your trunk, one piece at a time as you come all the way up to standing. And then from here, let's start to stretch the arms forwards and up. Reach up nice and tall. Feels so easy now without the weights. Hinge forwards at the hips. Feel free to bend your legs. Let's lengthen. Glide the fingertips about halfway up your legs. Look a little bit forwards maybe. And then place the hands on the floor. Step back into a plank position. From plank, you can use your knees if necessary, but we're going to lower the body to the ground with control. From here, keep your hands kind of in line with your chest, but lift your palms up off the floor, and if you'd like, you can lift your legs up this time. Starting to energize the muscles through the backs of the legs, all the way down through to the soles of the feet. Can you feel the calf muscles kicking in? Point the toes. Glutes and hamstrings. Take the hands to the floor. Use your knees. Push your body up. Let's go back to the downward dog position. Take the hips up into the air. From here, we're going to come on down to the left knee. If you need to cushion that knee with a blanket or something, you can. And step your right foot forward into a lunge. Really simple lunge. Take a moment to find your balance, and then when you think you found your balance, we can start to lift that front foot up and put it back down. And we'll just repeat this a little bit. Up and down. And then if you feel like it's manageable for you, you can lift it up and hold. And your body's gonna wobble. Don't expect it to stay completely still. Let the wobbling happen. Notice what that does for your hip, the awareness of the hip, the core starts to engage, the body starts to move a little bit quicker. Notice if you could breathe with your nose. And then let's place that right foot down onto the floor, hands on the hips. Let's tuck the pelvis under, give a squeeze to the left glutes, stretch the left arm overhead. And so already here, maybe feeling a bit of a stretch through the left thigh. So we do a bit of a posterior pelvic tilt, push down through the knee, reach up through the arm, and then let's reach over towards the right side. Imagining like you're pulling up and away from your left hip. And then let's return to center. We're gonna grab your weight, one of your small weights, place your left hand down on the floor, step your right foot a little bit out to the right side, take the weight into the right hand overhead. You can look up at the weight if you'd like. And then let's start to do small circles in the air with that top arm. Now noticing that your bottom arm isn't collapsing inward, so can you stay organized through that bottom shoulder? Feel the connection between the arm and the trunk while you make these nice circles in the air with the right arm. This is a pretty lightweight for this move. We could be using much heavier than 2 pounds, but it's just a nice way to kind of open up some of the shoulder muscles, contracting the muscles more in the back of the shoulder. Sometimes it feels like a little bit of a stretch for the muscles in the front of the shoulder, but it's quite engaged because we've got that little weight in the hand, so it's kind of nice. Want to make circles, but like really smooth circles. They can be big circles, but we want to keep them smooth and slow. Taking it down to the floor, place that weight down on the ground, and then we're going to place the hands and the knees down. Let's take it back into the downward dog position. Pause here for a second. And then place the right knee down on the floor, step your left foot forwards into a lunge. Come on up, take a moment, find your balance. Once you feel like everything's in the right spot, let's see if it's possible to lift that front foot up and then place it back down. Lift it up, place it down. Then you might try to lift it up and hold it up. Ooh, it's gonna get a little bit wobbly. You're gonna start to move quickly. If you lose your balance, you just put your foot back down, just restart, regroup whenever you need to. Feeling all the activation in that bottom hip, that bottom leg. It's like trying to figure out what is happening. Notice if you could breathe through your nose. It's kind of like a chaotic exercise. Ooh, sometimes we start to default back to the mouth breathing, but notice if it's possible, just stay aware of the breath. Place the foot on the floor with the hands on the hips. Do a bit of a posterior pelvic tilt. So tuck your pelvis under a little, squeeze your glutes, reach the right arm up, maybe feeling this nice gentle stretch up the thigh and up through the waist, and then let's arc towards the left side. Imagine you're reaching your arm and it's coming right out of the front of your hip. And then take your left foot a little bit out towards the left side, grab your weight, place your right hand down on the floor, take the left arm up into the air, take a moment to organize your bottom shoulder so we're not letting the shoulder drop in, and then making some circles overhead with the top arm. Start your circles small, especially if you're not used to doing this. And then gradually, as you feel comfortable with it, and as your shoulder figures out how to engage, you can make your circles bigger. And just having that little weight up there is oftentimes just gonna help get a little bit more activation, a little bit more control. It kind of helps us feel where our arm, where our hand is in space. Again, notice your bottom shoulder. Try not to shrug in this one. The last couple circles here. Looking downwards, place your weight down on the floor, then place your hand on the floor. Step it back, downward dog position, take the hips up into the air. Pause for a sec, take a breath. And then let's come forwards into a table position. So we're gonna continue with the shoulder work with the weights. We'll start it in a table though. So first you wanna just like set up your kind of neutral position. Once you feel steady, we're gonna pick up the weight with the right hand and just pick it up. And even just noticing how when you pick it up, there is activation through the whole body, through the core, the trunk. And I want you to put that weight down somewhere else. And then place your right hand back down on the floor. With your left hand, you're gonna pick up the exact same weight from wherever it is, pick it up, stay organized through your trunk, and place it down somewhere else. Place the hand back on the floor. Pick the weight up, Place it down somewhere else. Take your other hand. Sometimes you have to go out of neutral to reach your weight. Place it somewhere else. So you can continue this from the table position. And if you feel like it might be appropriate for you, you can also take a wide leg plank. Picking up the weight, placing it somewhere. Go get it with your other hand. Place it somewhere else. The tendency is going to be to lift the bum up into the air. So as much as you can, try to keep your hips down just in a regular plank. Pick up the weight, move it. Stay organized, stay controlled through the rest of the body. And do a couple more. And if you need to come back down to the knees, you should definitely go back onto the knees. And as we put our arms into all these different positions, as we put our body into these different positions, we're going to feel different parts of the body engage. Noticing what your tendencies are. Is the head trying to drop down? Is the lower back trying to drop down? Place the weight on the floor. Let's take it into a downward dog and then walk your hands into your feet. Take your feet into a good position for you to come on down into a squat. And if your heels don't touch, that's okay. Just kind of a casual squat for right now. And just lean a little bit of weight from side to side. Having a moment. Let's come into our squat and see if it's possible to take the hands off the floor. And you can always use like one hand on the floor if you need to. And we're gonna just walk up to the front of the mat. See if you can stay nice and low in your squat. Okay, be in a squat at the top of your mat and then grab onto your right weight. And then you can have your other hand on the floor. We're gonna start to draw big circles. So reach the arm out in front of you, up towards the ceiling, all the way back behind you, and down to the floor. And then we're gonna go in the opposite direction. Reach the arm up. And this time, let your ribs move, let your waist move. It doesn't have to be completely isolated to the shoulder joint. Just like let the upper body move with the arm if that feels good for you. We'll do one more. So 3 in total. Reaching. Circling back. And then let's place that weight on the floor, switch sides. Reach with the left arm. So it can be a little bit of a twisting motion as well. Notice if one side moves a little bit more smooth than the other. This is okay, it's probably normal. 2 more times. So we're using the weight. There is activation, but it can be a little bit more of a gentle movement. We're using the weight also just to help us in our stretch. Then we're going to have both weights. Start in a forward fold. You have your knees a little bit bent. And then slowly begin to roll up through your spine. A little bit slower than we did earlier. Let the weights just kind of hang your arms down. From here, as you roll your body all the way up, we're going to stand up nice and tall. Let the weights drop down through the shoulders. And then let's start to drop the right shoulder towards the right ear. And just feel your left arm get a little bit heavier. Then let your right weight start to pull you down a little bit. So the right weight is pulling you down to the floor. Left weight is keeping your shoulder away from your ear. Neck and ribs get a little bit of a stretch to the side. Roll it back to center. Pause in the center for a second. And then left weight starts to pull you down. Let your head and your neck go with you. Trying to keep the right shoulder away from the ear. Slowly come back to center. And let's just go a couple more times side to side. So let your head initiate the movement, and then the weights just kind of pull you. And just kind of slowing it down. So as we start to do a little bit more gentle movement, maybe the nervous system starts to quiet down a little bit. And then if you want to, with your head, you could make more of like a circular or half circular motion. And you can let your shoulders come into it as much or as little as you'd like, but sometimes just having the weights in the hands gives a nice little counter stretch. Spend another minute or so moving your neck. And then let's let the weights bring you all the way back down to the floor, slow and smooth, moving through the trunk. Sometimes it's nice to just kind of like move the arms a little bit, move the weights a little bit, let the shoulders relax, especially after all the shoulder work that we just did. As the weights touch the floor, we can come on down into a squat. If you want to use your hands, you can bring yourself all the way down to the floor, and then we'll use the weights in the hands. This is kind of optional. You could also just lie yourself back, but I like to do this. Straighten out your legs, weights forward, so weights are going to help you, and let's slowly roll the body back to the floor. I really like using the weights for this because it almost makes it a little bit easier. We're going to take the arms out to the sides, take your weights out to the sides so the elbows are bent at 90 degrees. If this doesn't feel safe for your shoulders, you could also do this without the weights. The weights are not completely essential right now. Press the back of the ribs a little bit into the floor. So we want to make sure that we're not in a big arch. And then let's lift the arms about 5 inches off the floor and hold. And again, if it just doesn't feel good for you, you can put the weights on the floor. You're gonna feel your chest muscles, your bicep muscles maybe. The arms might feel a little bit wobbly, this is normal, but just the slight resistance is nice to push into. If you have a hard time with your shoulder and chest mobility, I think this is a really great way to start to tap into it a little bit. Holding for a few more seconds, so we're doing longer isometrics. And then with control, slowly count to 5 as you put your arms back down on the floor. Hold there for a second. Let the weights weigh your arms down. We're going to do that same thing 2 more times. So slowly gather the strength of your shoulders, lift the weights off the floor. This time you might lift them up a tiny bit higher. So you can see your hands in your peripheral vision. Try to keep the ribs on the floor so it's not turning into a back bend. You can let your legs relax. Try not to shrug. Just letting the arms kind of hover in space. And then slowly, even slower. It's an eccentric contraction. This is what's going to really, I think, help open our chest muscles. Weights down onto the floor. Hold there. Let the weight of the arms feel heavy. Last time, we're going to lift the arms up. Maybe even lift them up a little bit higher this time. Holding. Keep the elbows bent. The higher they go, sometimes it starts to feel a little bit easier, but it's going to be really nice on the way down. And let's slowly lower with control. All the way down. Even at the end range, really slow. And then place the arms down. Pause, let your arms relax. If you want to keep the weights in your hands, you can. You can also just take the weights off to the sides. And just letting the weight of the arms feel heavy on the floor. If you need to give your legs a little shake or just kind of adjust your body, you can. If you want to put your arms in a different position, let's find a position for them that's going to feel comfortable to stay for a few minutes. But we want to try to imagine like the arms are heavy, like they're pressing down. They're just getting weighed down into the floor. Notice if you can feel all the different parts of the body that are making contact with the floor, the imprint of the body on the floor. And then with your thumb and your index finger, let's catch hold of the bottoms of your ears, grab onto your earlobes, and then pull your ears down and pull them out to the sides a little bit with enough force that you feel a bit of a stretch around your jaw muscles, your neck muscles. If you want to move your jaw, move your head a little bit from side to side, that might feel helpful. And then just taking the arms back down onto the floor wherever you want. Notice if you can relax the weight of the head on the floor and relax the weight of the shoulders. And if you have a little bit more time today, you could stay here in your resting position for as long as you'd like. Thanks so much for practicing with me today. Hope you're feeling nice and calm, and I will see you all soon.